Which shoe is better to hoop in? The Nike Giannis Immortality 2 or the Immortality 1? Today we're putting the first and second shoes from Giannis and Delacruz sub shoe line with Nike head to head to see how they compare. But really quick, if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. So as you can see here, I did kind of fracture my right hand. So at least for the Immortality 2 action shots, those are going to be left-handed because, well, obviously. But, now starting off with the box and the price. As you can see, we're going to get the same blue box for both shoes. And you're going to get Giannis's player logo kind of blown up on top. Nothing really too special there. But as for pricing, the Immortality 1s are going to retail for the low price of $80, making them a very affordable basketball shoe. And the Immortality 2 did get a little price jump this year, and it's going to retail for $85. So still not bad as far as the price goes, though. I mean, not a bad costing model. So taking a quick look at the appearance for these and starting off with the colorways, today we have the Nike Giannis Immortality 1 Championship versus the Giannis Immortality 2 Sail. So to make things a little bit easier, I'll just start off talking about the Immortality 1s, and then I'll transition more into the Immortality 2s, so I can draw out some of the similarities and some of the differences. And just to let you know, as sort of a summary, we have a lot of similarities here today between these shoes, starting off with the appearance section. So the Immortality 1s are going to get Giannis's logo kind of blown up on the tongue, and then followed by that is going to be like the number 34 at the bottom of the lacing system. And this shoe is kind of like split in half between like textures and materials being used. Like, it's pretty easy to see between like the black and the heel compared to like the white up there in the front portion. Those are kind of, a different setup. You're going to get a rounded heel that's going to display some Athens and Lagos text since Giannis is from Greece. I did think that was a pretty cool touch. Then you're going to get a gold outline Nike swoosh on the outside of the upper, but the reverse Nike swoosh on the inside of the upper, I do like that a little bit more. But now switching it over to take a look at the Immortality 2s, I mean, just look at them. Like, these are nearly identical to the Giannis Immortality 1s. And in the places they aren't, it pretty much just like kind of flip-flop. So clearly you're going to have the same midsole look for each shoe. Like, you're going to get the same wrinkles in the back half, kind of around the heel, same curve on the heel. And then you are also going to see that same Athens text on there as well. And then whenever it comes to the spots that like Nike switched it up, like the outside of the upper is going to be a reverse swoosh, or reverse Nike swoosh, which actually looks pretty sick. It kind of reminds me of the Zoom Freak 4s. And I think those should be releasing soon. I thought they were already supposed to, but they haven't yet. But then on the inside of the upper, you're going to get a forward-facing Nike swoosh. I just think this is kind of funny because on the Giannis Immortality 1, the swoosh on the outside was facing forward. The inside swoosh was kind of reversed. So it's basically the same shoe with just like a mirrored look on the upper. But I guess, Nike did at least kind of change up the pattern on the upper a little bit on the Giannis Immortality 2. And they also added the GT Run logo with like those little squiggly lines on the inside part of this shoe for some reason. And if anyone knows why that's there, let me know, because I haven't seen any reason as like to why they would put that on there. But I mean, these shoes are like a walking example of you can copy my homework, just make sure you change it up so we both don't get caught. That's basically what I think Nike did with this line. But honestly, even after that, I still think they look really clean, especially for a sub shoe line. But now let's see how both shoes hold up on the court. Alright, so for the last half of this review, I'll hit on more of the materials and the performance side for both of these shoes. So starting off with the cushioning, I'm going to remind you again that these shoes are going to be really similar for these sections. The Giannis Immortality 1 uses some Phylon and pretty much Phylon only in the midsole for the cushioning setup, and that is kind of what it feels like. I do remember playing in these last year, and the cushioning, just isn't all that soft. So you'll want to allow some time to break these in, but honestly, I'll say they don't really loosen up all that much anyways. And the Phylon setup is actually what's going to be used in the Immortality 2 as well for this model. And not shockingly, it feels and plays pretty much about the same. But there are some like cutouts in the midsole for both of these shoes, and that just helps reduce the weight. And I mean, I will say both of these shoes are super light, but those cutouts also provide optimal responsiveness because it allows more space for the foam to like expand. And for those out there, who like more of a responsive feel, that is what I would call this shoe line so far. Like, I mean, the KD Tray 5, the LeBron Witness, you can feel a little bit more padding in those like shoe lines compared to the Immortality line so far. And honestly, I do kind of prefer those models to play in, especially when I'm looking at a budget-friendly model, because I know that, like, it means the cushioning isn't going to be quite as high if you're, cutting the cost down. But I mean, I do like to use some of the cheaper models outdoors, and I'm not sure that I love this, like, as far as like impact protection, if I would love these models enough to do that. So now looking at more of the materials and the support, the Immortality 1s are split up into two sections. It's a lightweight mesh setup in the front half of the shoe, and then around the back near the ankle, you're going to get more of a filled in section, and the airflow to your foot is great. And support actually isn't bad on these. Like, I mean, from the jump, you can kind of tell that you aren't dealing with, the highest quality material, but the ones have an internal strap that wraps over the midfoot to help keep your foot locked in. And then now I want to switch it over to talk about the Immortality 2s, because this is yet another two sections that these shoes stack up virtually the same. So the 2s are going to get that same mesh upper that is engineered to be lightweight and breathable. And I guess there is a slight difference here because the pattern is going to be a little bit different. You get some like, arrows and just different stuff, mixed in on that design. But for the supports, you are going to have some nice features, the same nice features from the Immortality ones. But it is a little bit easier to spot on the 2s. Like you can actually see that midfoot strap in the yellow. It shows up on the inner side of the upper, and you can actually see it on the outside too. Just it's not quite as easy to see, but that's going to be directly tied into the lacing system, kind of where those yellow flaps are, and that's a band that's just going to help keep your foot from sliding around, just moving more than it should. And like I said, that was on the 1s too. Just Nike made it a little bit more visible on this year's model, and I always do like whenever shoes do that, just kind of let you see what's being used within it. That helps make it work. I think that's a pretty cool concept. But both of these shoes are going to be extremely light to play in. The Giannis Immortality 1 is actually the lightest shoe that I've ever hooped in, weighing only 344 grams for a size 10.5. I mean, that's insane. And the Immortality 2s are going to be barely above that, weighing 372 grams for the same size. So I just love how easy these models are to play in. And shoes this light, that's kind of when I start to look at the support a little bit closer. But the strap along with the nice heel counter makes both of these models. Finishing off with traction, I mean, it wouldn't even be fun for Nike to switch something up at this point, and don't worry, they didn't. So the Nike Giannis Immortality 1 is going to get a herringbone pattern that's kind of sectioned off and broken up in a few different places, and that herringbone pattern is sort of the standard for shoes right now, just as far as traction goes. I just think it's one of the more consistently well-performing traction patterns, and these do play nice. I didn't love the cushioning part, but for the Giannis Immortality 1s, but pretty much all other aspects of the shoe were solid. There's definitely some bite on the 1s, and now we're going to switch it over to the Giannis Immortality 2s that are going to get the exact same setup as the 1s. So I do feel like the Giannis Immortality 3 is just going to be so different because these shoes, they just didn't switch anything up this year. But I mean, I still do like the setup, and the traction plate's solid. It's definitely not a weak spot on the 2s. And I'll bring the audio down here for a little squeak test that we have been getting suggestions to include. And I actually forgot to do it on the 1s, but you can kind of tell that these aren't all that squeaky. I mean, it is there a little bit, and that isn't always going to determine, how good the grip is for traction, but it does play nice. And the Immortality line, I'm going to say it's good. It's not quite great, but it definitely is good. And as for outdoors, the tread, it does look like, it wouldn't necessarily hold up bad. But with these not being one of the, better shoes out there for impact protection necessarily, I don't know that I would recommend it unless, comfort for your feet just doesn't really bother you. You don't have a very sensitive foot or anything like that. But to finish off with sizing, I mean, of course, both of these shoes are going to fit the exact same. You got about a thumb's width for the length left over, but I still wouldn't recommend going a half size down because this is going to be a slightly narrow side for just the fit for the width, so keep that in mind. So for the final ratings, strap in for a fun one here. So starting off with the appearance, Nike only changed one thing pretty much on this entire model by reversing the swoosh on the upper, but I am a sucker for that look. I love the Travis Scott vibes, so I'm going to start off going with the Giannis Immortality 2. Alright, so for the cushioning, we get a tie because the exact same stuff is being used and it feels the same. It's going to be more responsive than soft for sure though. For the materials, we get a tie because the exact same stuff is being used. You're going to get mesh on both, but it's crazy lightweight mesh. I actually did love that. For the support, we get a tie because the exact same stuff is being used. I'm sorry if this sounds repetitive right now, because it is. But I mean, that midfoot strap, it does feel like it helps with the support section, just helps keep it playing well. I do always kind of look for something like that on this light of a model, and both of these shoes kind of fit that category. And then to finish it off with traction, well, we get a tie because the exact same stuff is being used. So I'm sorry if you feel like you just wasted your time to find out that the performance battle does in fact end in a tie. I mean, even with one shoe on each foot, I cannot feel the difference between these models. So it will be interesting to see if Nike kind of switches things up for next year's design. But if you're looking for something that's going to be affordable and super light to play in with good traction and support, a little bit more on the responsive side for cushioning, I mean, either one of these shoes would fit that category. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. If you're interested in buying the Nike Giannis Immortality 2 and you want to support our channel, just click the link here on screen. We have links for both shoes down below or in our bio, so feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.